Thank you for joining me here on Taya's Sweet Aroma. Today I'm going to be sharing with you the recipe for my tacos dorados. Growing up, my family always referred to these tacos as lazy tacos, and I never understood that because to me they were the harder tacos to make. I learned how to make chicken tacos. I learned how to make I even learned how to fry taquitos before I learned how to make these tacos. Now, the difference between these tacos and regular ground beef tacos is that the meat is going to be fried in the shell at the same time. And so when you think about that, it's kind of like when you're making a meatloaf. You want to make sure that your meatloaf is seasoned before you cook it, because if you don't get to taste it till it's done. And so one of the things that I focus on is really getting the meat nice and flavored before I get it fried up. And one way that I do that is I add in my homemade sofrito, which just gives it just so much good flavor. I mean, you have of course, the fresh garlic flavor, which I'm smelling just from the package and just standing here. I can just smell it all the way up here. So you have the garlic, you have the peppers, you have the onions, you have the cilantro. I mean, you taste all that good flavor in the meat. And then I also throw in a few extra spices just to kick it up a little more. So anyhow, I'm gonna bring you in a little closer so we can go over the ingredients. The ingredients you're gonna need for these tacos is some 88-12 ground beef. You can also use 80-20, but I wouldn't recommend going any higher in fat than an 80-20. I have down here some of my homemade sofrito, an egg, some corn tortillas. I like to use the really thin ones. You can use white or yellow corn, whichever you prefer. And in this bowl, I have some sharp cheddar cheese along with some Monterey Jack. I like the Monterey for the stretch, whereas the cheddar, the sharp is gonna give it a really nice cheddar flavor. In this, but you can use whatever cheese you prefer for this, whatever melty kind of cheese that you like, you can use that. In this bowl, I have all my seasonings. I have some salt, some freshly ground pepper for a really good pepper flavor in the meat, some ground cumin, granulated garlic, and some Mexican oregano. So to get started, we're gonna get everything incorporated into the meat. Here's my sofrito. I'm gonna get that poured over the meat. In this bowl, I have all the seasonings. I like to use my hand to really crush up the oregano. Has these little flower buds in it, so I find that when I use my fingers, and it just helps it blend a lot better with the other seasonings. And I'm doing this now so that way I don't overwork my meat when it comes time to mix, and I can be assured that everything's getting evenly distributed over the meat. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and take my seasoning, get it sprinkled over my meat. May seem like a lot of seasoning, but it's a lot of meat in this bowl, so you got to keep that in mind. Now also my egg. Now the egg is a trick that my sister Cherie taught me years ago. And what I like about the egg is just like with meatloaf, except it's not going to have a meatloaf consistency because it's just one egg, but it really helps to bind all the meat together as well as help it to stick to the corn tortillas. So I'll give it a light little whisk. Now I'm going to pour this over the meat. Now using my hands, I'm going to take my ring off. You want to gently, with like clawed hands kind of, just mix everything together, trying not to overwork the meat too much. Now, as soon as I no longer see any more egg in the meat hanging out separately, then that usually means the meat is well combined. So we're gonna start getting the shells ready. So to get started, I'm gonna take a corn tortilla, and I take usually about 2 tablespoons, can take off some if you need to, and I press the meat onto half of the corn tortilla. Okay, I have that patted on nicely, and you can kind of get a glimpse at how thick I have it on the corn tortilla right there. You want to, like I said, it's roughly around 2 tablespoons. Now what I like to do is, I'm gonna do one more so I can show you how I like to stack them up. Now we have that one patted. Now what I like to do as I'm stacking them, and it just makes it easier when it comes time to fry them, I stack them up like this. So I go one that way, this way, so then the next time the meat side's gonna go this way, and then I just keep stacking them, and that way when it comes time to fry them, it just makes it a lot easier to have them all prepped and ready on top of each other. I'm gonna go ahead and continue to fill the rest of the, well, not fill, to press the meat onto the rest of the corn tortillas, and I will show you the next step when we get there. Okay, the last one is all done. Now you can see here my big stack of tacos, well, soon to be tacos. One thing I did want to say was that if you wanted to, you can prep them all the way up to this stage, cover them with plastic wrap, put them in the fridge, and then when you're ready to fry them up, take them out about 15 minutes ahead of time while your oil is heating up, and then just fry them up from there, and that way you're not doing so much all at once. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go and wash my hands, get my oil preheating over a medium-high heat, and then I will show you how to fry them up. To get started frying the tacos, my oil is nice and hot. Next to my pot, I have a sheet pan that I've lined with paper towel, and I have a rack here which I'm gonna sit the tacos on as they're done, so that way they can drain off some of that extra oil. So now you just wanna get your corn tortilla and taco meat, I guess that's what you can call it, because it's not quite a taco yet. Okay, so as you see, it's getting nice and cooked that way. And then using my tongs, I hold the shell. I'm trying to make sure you can see. I hold the shell up just a little as it's frying. Now you can also fry it up in a skillet. I like to use a bigger pot, because that way it keeps the oil from going too crazy all over the place, less mess to clean up. So if you wanted to, you can also use a skillet. Now as that one's going, I'll go ahead and add in another one. Now you can usually cook in this size pot about 4 at a time. All that I'm trying to do is let the meat get a little more cooked, then I'm going to flip it to the other side. And you know when to pull up the corn tortilla. As soon as it starts to get a little hard, then you want to pull it up and hold it up and allow it to kind of have that edge on it. So now with this one, get that one to stay a little more. So now with this one, it's trying to stick a little, I'm going to go ahead and flip it to this side and allow this side of the corn tortilla to cook up. Got that one going. Going to go ahead and add in another one. Again, waiting for when it's no longer as flimsy, you can go ahead and hold it up. And I put a hole in it, but that's okay. Okay, this one's almost ready, so I'm going to go ahead and flip it over to that side. Now I'm just getting that part of the shell crisp. This one is ready to hold up. You can put as many in the pan as you can handle at one time. Not necessarily as much room as you have, but however many you can handle at one time. So that part of the shell, this one's almost about done. As you can see, the meat shrinks up a pretty good amount. And that egg actually really helps the meat stick to the corn tortilla as you're cooking it. Now I'm going to go ahead and flip this one over. This one looks ready to come out. The shell is nice and crispy. Now I'm going to add in another one, and you just keep doing this process as you're going. Now what I like to do as well, as these ones are frying, I take my cheese, and right away when they come out, I get my cheese, and I just smother the meat completely in cheese. Make them extra cheesy, because that cheese is going to melt on that hot meat very well. Nice crunchy shell, the meat's done, and then you have this cheese that's going to get nice and melty on top. So I'm going to continue frying these ones up, and then I will show you them when they're done. I like to top these tacos with some lettuce, tomatoes, green onions, as well as serve them up with some good homemade salsa. This is my Queasy tomato salsa, which I've shared the recipe for. So be sure to check it out if you're looking for a really good homemade salsa recipe. Now you can see how nicely the cheese melts up inside of these tacos. They are oozing with cheese. Like I said earlier, just use whatever cheese you like. I really like the combination of the Sharp and the Monterey for these tacos. I'm serving myself up one of these tacos so I can give it a try for you guys. Gonna put some lettuce on. Again, toppings are up to you. Whatever you like to have on a taco, use it here. Little green onion. Gonna get some of this salsa right at the tip of my bite. Now close your eyes if you don't want to see a really big bite taken out of this taco. Mmm. 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 Man, that meat is flavored. And that's why I said it's very important when you're first starting these tacos to make sure that you season your meat really well, because there's no way of infusing that flavor in the meat once the tacos are done. Mmm. Mmm. And the meat is so juicy. Let me bring you in a little closer so you can see. So you can see the meat is nice and juicy still, well cooked through. I mean, I'm not a fan of medium well, but you can cook them a little less time if you want. But the meat stays nice and juicy. That egg also helps with that. Now, one way to keep your meat nice and juicy like this is to make sure that your temperature is right. I say about a medium high or a medium heat. And if your shells start to get really brown very quickly as you're frying them, then that means your oil is too hot. So turn your heat down. Now, the same thing with if it's taking a long time for the shell to get hard, then that means your oil probably needs to get turned up. I am just starting to get used. We're in a rental home right now where we're waiting for our house to get built. And I'm still trying to get used to this glass stove top. So just gotta play with your stove, adjust it to however your food is cooking. That's the best way for me to describe it. Anyhow, I thank you for spending time with me here today. I hope that you give these tacos a try. As you can see, they're not as intimidating as I once considered them to be as a teenager. And they're so good, just so easy to fry up. If you feel like it's too much for you, you can also, too many for you, you can also cut the recipe in half. Now, my family devours these things, so if anything, I'm probably eventually, as my boys get older, I'm gonna have to probably start doubling the recipe. But, and the girls can throw down on eating as well, so it's not just the boys. So anyhow, thank you again, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye.